Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the recap and review of Anonymous Was a Woman. Let's get the ball rolling. Basically, this episode starts out with an unsuspecting man getting a peculiar condiment on his sandwich. Blood from a dead murdered woman. I don't know how there can be a live murdered woman, but they're still probably charging him an extra 75 cents for it. Then in the bullpen, Palmer's definitely not snooping, and to prove he's not snooping, he quotes the letter, to which he is not snooping upon. So then Tony walks in and we find out he's writing letters to women he's been with. I hope he's invested in a pretty large stationery set. My personal assumption is that it was every woman he had like a bitter ending with, which makes me kind of hopeful that maybe Jean will be brought up. I don't know. I know everyone and their mother hates her, but I can dream, alright? Also, are we getting to know the real Tony? Is he possibly changing with someone? Oh. Susan Grady, the polygraph lady, is back, and she's back with bangs, so obviously she's a changed woman who's making serious life decisions. The way she delivers the line, "The times they are a-changin', boys," I love it. It sounds like a line that cues a giant musical number, and it's wonderful. I like it a lot. Usually Susan annoys me a lot, but I actually really liked her this episode. I did not mind her at all. Susan Grady is applying to be a special agent. How convenient! Then they investigate the dead woman, and it turns out she's not who she says she is, and is just using Navy ID. And last time that happened, we ended up with 2 dead people and a broken Israeli, so can we not do this storyline again? Then Gibbs and DiNozzo and McGee have this conversation about replacements, and it's kind of truth or consequences-ish, and not in a good way, and it introduces us to this really weird tension between Gibbs and DiNozzo that kind of continues throughout the episode, and it's strange, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I do not appreciate it. The woman who was murdered is an Afghan woman under a fake name, and she knows Layla. Shocking. Then we get this adorable scene of Amir and Gibbs at a playground, and it was so adorable that I almost fell out of my bed and died. And they talk about visiting each other, and Amira loves Gibbs, and Gibbs loves Amira, and Layla and Tony are smiling adoringly from the sidelines. And if you don't think this is the most adorable thing you've ever seen, please relocate yourself until you discover your soul. Also, Gibbs plays Twister. Do I smell a subplot for the 250th episode? I think I do. Also, Mike Franks is only in flashbacks this episode, and not in hallucinations, which is healthier, I guess, compared to the alternative. But I like how Mike just casually walks into Gibbs' basement like, "Hey, here's a smuggled teenage girl. Why don't you just look after her for a few days? I'll show myself out." Even though I can see where people are coming from, I still really liked Mike in this episode, and I thought it was a good episode, and I like that we're still learning about Mike, even though he's gone, but not really, because he's still in every other episode. We're learning about Gibbs' past through his acquaintances, and it's much better than that barbershop one, because that was just not my favorite. We get another scene between Gibbs and DiNozzo, and the tension is so thick we're gonna need John Henry to plow through this one. Then we get a flashback triggered by fries, because they are so emotionally compelling. Then we're brought back to this flashback with Gibbs and the Afghan girl, and it's a really sweet scene because she had to grow up really fast, and we know she's been through so much, but she still has certain innocence to her when it comes to like things like the little penguin toy. Like, I just thought that was really well done. She's had so much innocence taken away from her, and yet it's brought back with some of the simple things that she missed out on. And it's just a really nice scene, and Gibbs is really drawn in by the innocence, I think. We also find out that the woman may have been murdered as part of an honor killing. Through another flashback, we find out that Mike wants Gibbs to help smuggle in a large group of girls, and Gibbs is like, "You know I'm like a investigator, right?" And Susan Grady is now the interrogation lady. Did I miss when she became so sassy? Did I miss, these huge progressions that somehow happened between season 10 and season 11? She's really vicious in interrogation. Bangs do that to a woman. And then McGee's just watching through the glass like, am I terrified or am I I strangely turned on? Both. Both is good. A lot of people were annoyed that Susan was cutting Tony off. I mean, obviously I didn't want Tony to be, like, disrespected, but I didn't think it was disrespectful. I just thought she was on a roll. And then DiNozzo and Gibbs consult this guy, and he's like, wait, they were smuggled? And Gibbs is like, shh, don't, I know. Shh, it's been a hectic week, just let it go. And so then they find out that all the women were once at the same shelter, so they head off to Afghanistan. You know, normal weekend getaway. So they're desperately trying to find out who leaked the information, but we can't do that without getting another Mike Franks flashback. So we get another Mike Franks flashback. It's basically Gibbs saying, maybe this time I shouldn't defy the system. Then McGee hears some horror stories from the women, and DiNozzo and Grady collect the women in the US who are in danger, and we find out that Gibbs and friends weren't the only ones who were affected by Mike Franks' death. And that, you know, some families were, like, split up. Mike was a really imperative part of this whole underground railroad sort of organization. And then the place gets, like, shot up, and it shows just more of, like, this horrible stuff that they go through. Then we get the Mike Franks and Gibbs confrontation, and this episode is really interesting because it shows a very kind and caring Gibbs, and then it also shows this very harsh, unforgiving, tired Gibbs. And I mentioned in the spoilers and theories I thought we'd be able to see some, like, inner Gibbs workings through Mike, because I thought he was going to be a hallucination, but it's really Gibbs just having that without the help of Mike. He's just having that, you know, am I doing the right thing now? Was I doing the right thing before? And it's important to see Gibbs going through that because they do paint him as Superman a lot, and, you know, it's nice that they show that very human side to it. And now we get to hear some of the women's horror stories, and it's their life. This episode is very good at taking away the character aspect and reminding you that this stuff really does happen to people, and it makes you feel very invested in these people's lives. There's an attack, and then they even show how scary it is because of the very scarce level of health that they have, and there's, like, this horror and terror and hopelessness, and, like, I felt for these girls, and it just increases that, you know, this does happen to real people, and it's, you know, awful. But basically, Gibbs and McGee are just really staying to protect these girls. Back at NCIS, we just get this really short and sweet scene with DiNozzo, and this girl comes out and hugs him to thank him, and, you know, it shows what they do on a daily basis. It matters to people, and I thought that was really special and really nice and really sweet. Then back in Afghanistan, McGee and Gibbs are not leaving, and as the guy's walking away, he says, "What is it with these guys from NCIS?" Otherwise known as the tagline to the show. And then DiNozzo tells McGee, "Be careful," but he says, "Be careful, Tim." Just the fact that he calls him Tim makes it so much more emotional and serious, and okay. And then we get this really intense scene with Gibbs, and he's confronted with all these very dangerous men, and he's just standing there trying to protect these women. And it's such a dramatic scene, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and I literally had to keep going, wait, Gibbs can't die, he still has a valid contract. It's a really intense scene, and it does, once again, paint him in that Superman light, and in the end, the day is saved, but it still ends on that real note where it's like, this is today, but what is tomorrow? And I just really like that was put in there. Then we end, and they just bring up the information, like, really casually. Like, I kind of thought this was a big deal in the episode, but apparently we're just... there it goes. I like how the team appears to outsiders, like Susan Grady comments on it. Why do I keep referring to her as Susan Grady? Like, do you all not know that Susan is she? Well, we didn't get that a lot with Ziva just because we were so used to it, but it's interesting now and again to see people comment on it. I like how they're handling DiNozzo's progression because, like, he's not on the ground in a pool of his own tears, but he's not putting on the bravado, like the facade where he's just like, yep, I'm totally fine. I'm just gonna go hook up with a bunch of women and drink and be the class clown some more. He's maturing and he's changing with her. This episode was very real and I love getting invested in it like this, and I don't even want to call it the case of the week because that's just how real it is, and I felt this way about Seek too, and I love when these characters that I'll probably never see again, they mean a lot to me and other people watching, and I think that's a very, very, very good example of good writing. I don't even want to call them characters because that's how amazing they are. And like with this case, real people go through that, and I just thought this was amazing and eye-opening. One major grievance I had with this episode, besides the fact that Ziva wasn't in it, was that there's this really weird tension between DiNozzo and Gibbs, and it's not like Tony's not doing his job. Like, he's there, he's being a very good agent, and yet Gibbs is just constantly bragging on him and being angry and getting fed up with him. So I'm hoping that's something we'll discuss in the next episode, because it is a Tony-centric episode, and I'm excited to see where this progression will take him. Ziva would have been so perfect for this episode, I'm sorry. Look at my username. Do you really expect Ziva-less reviews? They're not happening. But I did think it was a good episode. And I wish Susan Grady was here to take us out with a musical number. But she's not, so goodbye, and I'll see you guys for the spoilers and theories for Once a Crook. That was not an attractive smile.